Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If the two of you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
You first, Andy.
Hey, I'm Andy. I play drums in My Heart and Inverted Flame, among other things.
And I'm Mark Kate, and I play synths in My Heart and Inverted Flame, among other things.
Guys, welcome.
Thank
Let's
you.
let's
Yeah, thanks for having us.
let's start with this very uh this very troublesome question. How would you describe the music you made? What is My Heart and Inverted Flame?
Oh, I thought the troublesome question was going to be about the name. um, oh,
I
sorry.
think that's a it's a funny question because people ask me all the time. Obviously, when you're say people know you're a musician, they want to know what your music sounds like, and it always depends on who's asking, right? And so the average person, I go like, Black Sabbath, but slower, because most people have no idea. If you said Con 8, would have no idea what you were talking about, or if it said Naja or the angelic process. But I think maybe your audience might know some of those
Yeah.
reference
Well, yeah, it's
points.
like I have a lot of coworkers and friends, especially up here in the woods, who have so little reference points, and so the fact that it's kind of spacey and has a lot of synthesizers. Almost every single one has mentioned Pink Floyd, which
Right.
is
Well, Tangerine
fine.
Dream or something like that, right?
Yeah, or something
Why
like that.
not?
Just
Sure, sure.
just because that's sort of when they try to think of like the weirdest, spaciest synthesizer thing, that's what comes to mind. But I think it's been shorthanded to doom synth or synth doom. I think there's a lot of other bands that are like it's not a genre that's new to us, but I think we've also that's sort of where we started. But I think it's been 8 years now, and this is our second record, but we have like three or four more recorded. So I think it's like a lot of the stuff that like Mark had the idea for the band and wanted to do something slow and heavy, and was like, I need a drummer, and he thought of me, and we played, and it was great. And it wasn't necessarily what we had been doing before, but I think as we continue, the stuff that we were doing before is kind of finding its way. Because the first record was very ultra doom, ultra slow, and this one, like I'm a much mathier drummer in general, and so a lot of that's found its way into it. So I think we're like expanding it to be like cinematic, psychedelic, synth doom, math doom. I don't know. It's I'm a big fan of like ridiculous genres. Like if my iTunes is full of like psychedelic Finnish caveman folk and like a genre that only applies to the one record that I decided sounded like that. And
Yeah.
um, I know in the world of Spotify and stuff, it has to be like rock or metal or something. But in my brain, it can be like you know garden moonbeam psychedelic space metal or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the long answer.
Yeah.
Synth doom.
Synth Doom.
Yeah, synth doom.
Mark, with regards to
TLDR.
your with regards
I'm
to
sorry.
your sorry,
Yep.
with regards to your synth setup, uh
Yeah.
anything that sounds like a bass guitar or an electric guitar or distorted guitar, is your synths running through an FX process?
Yeah, exactly. The majority of our music is me playing an analog polysynth through amps or amp modeling sometimes. But I find that if I get an analog synth patch just right and hit high gain um, on the tail end, it breaks up kind of like a bass guitar or a guitar or a down tuned guitar. And I love that. I love that sound from guitars, but I also have learned how to kind of craft a really dense, rich, blown out sound from synthesizers as well.
And in the practice space, and when we play live, it's like, his synth is like, oh yeah, this is audio, but I'm making a hands 2 feet apart. Like his synth is this big, but it's being run through like a full orange stack and two PAs and like six, like we're very much like, even though he's a synth nerd, we're very much like real pedal people. So like through all these like, you know, whatever it is, bit crushers, distortions, you know, like, so there's a lot of it tickles me, and I think him, Mark too, that like people just assume that there's guitar and bass, and there's not ever.
Yeah. Yeah. With regards to the Doom categorization, would you say a lot of that is the pace, the tempo, and maybe some of Andy, the minimalism with which you play drums?
Sure, yeah, I think so. I think it's also the atmosphere. We're, you know, big fans of like grim, gloomy miserableism. But I think, you know, to a again, I think it again depends who's listening, you know, like to a more sort of like random metal dude whose frame of reference for Doom is like Candlemass and whatever
St.
Black
Vitus.
Saint Vitus, Black Sabbath, then that's kind of their frame of reference. Whereas like I think in our heart of hearts, like Mark mentioned, Khanate and Naja, and for me it's like esoteric and things that are really, really like so slow and so like doom doom in intention, but experimental in execution. If that makes sense.
Yeah. But I'm curious though, if not metal guys, then who is your audience?
That's a very good question.
Oh dear
Uh,
God. Well, if it's any frame, I think that like we met. Andy used to be my boss working at a record store, and it's hard for me not to think of like maybe our best audience are other people who think about music like the annoying person behind the counter at a record store, you know, who just has too too many genres invested and cataloged. Um, like you know, I think we've already sort of touched on all these different genres and sounds and artists, and that is where we're coming from. Um, and I think that you know my interest in doom metal is sort of informed by like late 20th century minimalist composition. Like that's actually how I come to it is um, you know, experimental music that really puts a lot of effort into minimal, sustained, static ideas through duration. And you know, most music that I listen to is pretty minimal, not a lot of complexity. And what I really enjoy about this project with Andy is I get to sort of do that drone thing, and Andy can add this sort of like interesting dimension with this like really forceful, really complicated approach to um, the way he plays drums. And
yeah, and
so,
I'm sorry.
yeah, no, please.
I was gonna say I'm not sure. Like if I just left and you did this by yourself, it wouldn't be that different than what you were doing before, and you were performing at like electronic music festivals and doing like layered drones and like what'd you call it, like mega, not mega ambient,
Power ambient.
power ambient,
I
like
did not
power.
come up with that expression, but yeah.
No, but yeah, and so it's,
Death
and I
ambient?
think, you know, death ambient,
What's that?
yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Although I think I used to call, I think painkiller was something I have death as a death ambient in my iTunes maybe. But but yeah, I do. I think, you know, like I love metal. My job at work is actually, you know, I program metal for part of my job, and I've always been a metalhead. But like I do think that, like, you know, we've only played a handful of shows, and they've been like experimental shows, punk rock shows. You know, we weren't, you know, I have played another band that's more like dark, ambient, ritualistic, and that band plays with metal bands all the time, and it's totally inappropriate, but people appreciate the mood and the darkness and the like grim ritualism of it. And I think that's sort of true of us. Like I think we aspire to like I think mentioning Con 8 or Sun or those, that's like the aspiration is there to make this really epic experimental music that just happens to have some of the hallmarks of doom. And I'll say, this was originally Mark's concept, but once I joined, I don't know if you're familiar with the band The Necks, who are this Australian three piece that's just bass, piano, and drums. And they basically make these hour long, super repetitive compositions. They also did a 24-hour song once and played all, nonstop for 20, like, and in my head, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we were like a more metal Necks? And I think that's sort of informed my approach where like I really love, like Mark was saying, things that are repetitive and drony and static and sort of, throughout history, the kind of music that's sort of inspired trances and like the people who are like taking acid and trying to like reach this next level by harnessing sound and creating like moods and trances. And I think that's really a big part of what we do. And I think but like when you sort of bring it back to earth, there's a lot of like it does fit okay into some of the more sort of abstract doom, I think. Sorry, I'm blabbering.
Mark, you said something about your musical background. Did either of you guys study music, study composition, or music theory, anything like that?
No, I the closest I came was I went to CalArts for grad school as a visual artist, and I spent more time in record stores and talking to people in the music department and taking classes in the music department than I did in my own department. And so I dropped out and joined a band and just did music instead. And that was the closest I got to any sort of proper academic music training.
And I was only in college for like a year, and I studied music briefly, and then I quit college to go on tour with my band at the time. And that band was with two other music majors who were like super nerdy, so it forced me to like a lot of it was very compositionally dense and weird, and they were all like blah 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 blah, and I had to just figure it out, like counting or whatever. I'm like, I had to sort of pretend I knew what I was doing for years. But I think that's sort of, it's the same way. Like I never took drum lessons. I just listened to Metallica on my headphones and played along until I knew how to play drums. Like I think it gives you a unique perspective on how you approach your instrument and how you sort of like the things that are stylistically specific to you. I think that helps by forcing you to just like forge your own path.
Yeah. How much of your recorded material is improvised, and how much of it is composed beforehand?
100% improvised.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Everything
pretty
that's
close.
recorded, yeah, like all of our music. And this is only our second album, but we have how many EPs out? Like 20, like a lot.
Yeah, a dozen or
So there's a
something.
lot
Yeah.
out there. But the genesis of pretty much all of it is just the two of us in a room experimenting while tape is running.
Interesting.
Yeah, unlike
And
most
then
bands, we don't actually practice. Like, bands are like, "Oh, we're gonna go practice." We call it practice, but we just go and play and record the whole thing, and then usually Mark. And actually, I think almost every band I've been in has been a little like this, where you listen back and you find the pieces that work, and then you sort of build the song out of the pieces that work, and at that point, you sort of can the segues and stuff that can be crafted and stuff, but we sort of reverse engineer. So we make these songs, and then when it's time to play a show or tour, then we have to learn the songs, even though we technically never played them before. So
Interesting. Uh, a few of the songs on this latest album have vocals. Are the vocals something that you come up with at the time, or is it something that you do in post?
in post,
Okay.
yeah, just and that part's not quite improvised, although I tend to bring it together pretty quickly. I don't, rehearse it over and over and over. try to get the idea down as quickly as possible. And if it's good, I keep it, and if it's not, I just come back to it another day.
And I'm pretty anti-vocal, so
That's true.
uh, it took me a while. It took me a while to warm up to it, and then usually Mark has to make it weird enough and distorted enough and abstract enough where I often don't even realize they're vocals until later when he's like, there's vocals on that song. And I'm like, oh
Yeah,
shit.
I have to trick Andy into allowing there to be vocals in
Yeah.
this band. Yeah.
But then I end up really liking them, so it works out in the long run.
Andy, why so? I'm assuming that a lot of the music you listen to has vocals.
Oh,
Why?
sure. I think historically vocals have been, and I think this is true. Everyone like vocal, I, uh, vocals sort of make or break the band. You can hear a band and you're like, holy shit, this band rules. And the minute the singer starts, you're like, ugh, and it just ruins it. Like almost every band that I hate, that's where
Not
the
not even
hate
during the
starts. Where I'm
performance,
like,
right? Like sometimes it's just
yeah,
meeting
no,
a sometimes just meeting a
yeah,
vocalist and you're like, oh, I hate this band now.
oh yeah, yeah, just because vocalists are assholes. And also for us, I think I'm not so bothered by it now, but I think without the vocals, it stayed ambiguous. It stayed like genre ambiguous, if that makes sense. Like I feel like part of me thought like the minute we add those vocals, then it is metal or it is black metal or it is
Right. Yeah.
something. Without it, it was like experimental sun, Con 8, but
Dark
I was worried
ambient,
about it suddenly being like,
krautrock,
oh,
stuff like
it's
that. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that was kind of the worry, and I think Mark's really good about like being judicious. Like it's not on every song, and we did make a really great black metal record that is just sitting because we wanted like a real metal label to put it out. And we had all these people. We had like Rest from Leviathan, all these people lined up to contribute, and it hasn't happened yet. But like that one was where I was like, okay, vocals, that's like obviously needs to be there. But I think I was just reticent to like commit and be like, okay, this is now a screaming metal song.
Mark, do you want to say anything about vocals? Why some songs have vocals and why some songs don't?
Um, Sometimes when working on a track, it feels like there's something missing. And there were just these songs where like I feel like there's something missing, but it's not more synthesizer, it's not another layer of percussion, it's not just some sort of noise texture. Why don't I try and do something with vocals that ultimately becomes another noise texture? Let's be real. Um, and it becomes an interesting opportunity to work with lyrics, which I love doing. And just sort of inserting that in, even though ultimately the lyrics are completely impenetrable. It's there for me, and I enjoy that process of like working out how to execute these lyrics in a way that makes sense with this music.
We had some old songs when we first started. It was a way different band when we first started, and we were doing covers. And wasn't one of them a Chameleons UK song?
Yeah,
And
Chameleons and a Portishead song.
yeah, and I was definitely resistant then, but now that we've been doing this for so long, I'm more interested in like introducing like real vocals, like real like weird gothy deep vocals. Like I really like that kind of stuff. So and I think we've gotten to a point where I feel like it doesn't really matter anymore. We could kind of do what we want. Uh or maybe it never mattered, but but like and that's what I like about playing with Mark, because we definitely have the freedom where he could just come in and be like, I have this idea to do this weird serial music piece, let's do it, and we could just do it and it'll turn out cool. So
I want to circle back before we speak about the new album. I want to circle back to the beginnings of the band. You mentioned that you started about 8 years ago. What were your intentions at the time?
Well, the real genesis moment of the band was that I woke up the morning after Donald Trump was elected and just had this like, I want to make the loudest, angriest, wrathful music I can possibly think of. And at the time, I was listening to Khanate and Angelic Process and that sort of thing, and I just sort of gravitated towards that music because, as Andy was saying, I was kind of making solo music that explored those kinds of textures. Um, and then a friend of mine, Robert Crouch, who's a curator, he got Tim Hecker and Isis to collaborate on this live performance that I witnessed, and it was totally sublime and incredible. And I connected with Andy, and it made a lot of sense. And so, we, having been friends at that point for a really long time already, had so many, like, we just had a lot of musical shorthand that we didn't have to spend a lot of time on. We usually just know what we're talking about because we've been talking about and quite frankly arguing about music. We've already been arguing about music for like over a decade before we even started the band. So arguing about music some more was just kind of a continuation of the conversation that had begun in the record store in a sense. Um, and yeah, and so it was just like fun, the fun thing you do at a record store with a bunch of record nerds friends, where you just sort of like throw ideas about music back and forth. Well, we got to do that, but with like instruments in a room where we could make as much noise as we wanted. I feel like that's kind of part of what was happening in the earliest days of My Heart and Inverted Flame.
And honestly, for me, this is going to sound cheesy, but like, Mark and I were coworkers, and then we were friends, but we didn't really see each other very often. And then we
Yeah,
definitely didn't see each other for, I won't say 5 years or eight, a
yeah,
long time.
yeah, yeah,
And I kind of forgot. Well, I didn't forget, but it was kind of reminded how much I like Mark and how much I like spending time with him. And then
yeah,
I had made this rule. I had made this rule at some point after some tumultuous other band stuff that I never wanted to be in a band with an asshole ever again. And that meant that I was playing a ton with really awesome people, but never getting anything done because I feel like assholes are the people who really get stuff done.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like sticking to. I was like, only want to play with people I love, who I love hanging out with, and then thankfully, it just sort of blossomed. I mean, you could argue that it's taken us 8 years to put out two records, so maybe if we had an asshole, it would have gone quicker. But it was like a chance to play really interesting music that I find very satisfying to play and experiment with, but also to like deepen this friendship that I had sort of lost track of. So it was extra special in that sense.
yeah. And I feel like that, we're not the only band who quarantined together during COVID, for example. But for me, it was really helpful that Andy and I decided, like, okay, we're in a pod together, and we just kept meeting up and making noise and arguing about horror movies, which, let's be real, takes up like one third to half of
Most of
every
our time. Yeah.
practice. Yeah, it's not all music. Um, yeah. Sorry, did that kind of answer the
Yeah,
question? I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like we.
absolutely.
Okay, yeah,
Uh, I mean, part of my fascination with your project is sort of this like weird existential question that like I ask, over and over again on this podcast, and that's part of the reason why I asked if you guys have like a music theory or some kind of academic background, which is what is metal? Is metal something that's extremely slow or extremely fast? Is it something that's guitar based? Is it, because I speak with any number of black metal bands who you could take their music and play it on a cello or violin, and is it suddenly not metal because it's the exact same notes? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I
on the other hand, you could take a classical piece and play it with electric guitars and blast beats, and it would suddenly be black metal. So it's like
yeah.
this weird like riddle that like I've been trying to solve, and trying to explain to people like what this music is when you say
Yeah.
slower than Black Sabbath, like I think the first thing that comes to mind would be like, oh, okay, it's sun or it's Earth or
Yeah.
it's and my heart is both that and not that. Do you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, I do think like everything is informed by everything that came before, and I think musically, I was for sure like as much as I like doom and I like death metal and I like black metal, which I do a lot. That's not really what informed me as a drummer and a musician. You know, like I came up in the '90s, so a lot of what I was listening to was like Codeine and Slint and
right.
Bastro and Bitch Magnet and a lot of math rock, a lot of post rock, a lot of, and I worked in a record store, so I was very privileged to have this really like all this crazy music from Finland and all this crazy music from New Zealand. And so like as much as I loved metal and we championed metal at my store, it was just one piece. And then I think I also cared more when I was younger about what was metal. Like now I'm just like I like obviously I like sorry I'm losing the thread, but like I love speed metal, I love whatever, but I also in general just like things that are slow and heavy and layered and textured and drony and hypnotic. To me it doesn't matter if it's like dark ambient or black metal. Like there's like these elements that really move me, which tend to be like drony and static and psychedelic. Um, I do find it difficult for sure to your earlier question, like explaining to people what it is. And I think it's actually equally hard to explain to metal people and metalheads what we do. And I don't even expect a lot of metalheads to like it. I like it
or
when they
even
do,
or
and I
even
think it's
accept
cool.
that it could be called metal for that
Yeah,
matter.
yeah. Like when you ask that question, I bet people would be like, "Well, Mark and Andy's band is definitely not," So, but that doesn't even bother me. I just like I like. I spent a long time, and Mark worked at the store too, where it was really joyful for me to see people move out of their comfort zone and like we used to joke like some metal dude would come in and buy like a Bell and Sebastian record, and I was like, "That's the best thing that's happened today." Or we had this customer who only listened to like the tweeest pop music. He was like an older guy. He was a hippie. He only listened to like super sugary pop, and then out of the blue, he heard Burzum and he became obsessed. And then he just like started
Right.
just buying black metal, and I was like, that's awesome. Like he didn't like
Well, I don't know if
overanalyze it.
Burzum per se is somebody that we want to promote on the
Well, he
podcast,
struggled because
but
he was also that opened up this huge thing because he was Jewish and he came in
yeah,
and he's
yeah,
like, "Hey, I love this music, but I don't know what to do." And I was like, "Well, there's other music like it that's But I guess my point was he didn't like overanalyze. He just was like, "This is a sound that's amazing to me, and I want more of it." And I think that sort of purity of vision and just being like, oh my god, this sound moves me, I want to just bury myself in more of these sounds. Like I think that kind of joyful acceptance of music that's outside of your normal day to day is kind of like the best thing that can happen. So I love when like some total like leather vested denim
yeah.
dude with is like, oh my god, I love your band. And I was like, that's awesome because I know it's weird and it's not like Motorhead. So I just think that's really rad.
There's
Well, that
something in this question that I think is really funny for me because Andy will be modest about this, but like Andy's metal bona fides are like kind of above anybody's because I think Andy has probably written more metal reviews than any living human. That might be a fact and has turned on so many people to so many metal bands. Um, and he's in an ostensibly a metal band with me, and I am not a metal dude. Like that's like I love what I love, but I'm not a metal guy, right? Um, but another sort of thing that happens between the two of us is I've so often sent a text or come to practice and been like, yeah, but why is this considered metalcore? Can you explain how like what is this band doing that that other band is not doing that makes them this other genre? And of course, Andy to a degree, doesn't actually care about those differentiations, but can certainly speak to them better than I. So I'm often relying on Andy's wealth of metal knowledge to explain the things that just don't make no sense to me about
And
the hit. Yeah, good.
and honestly, I'm not. It sounds like I'm totally like downplaying the metal angle, but like, you know, I'm not. Like, I'm very proud of like, Aquarium, my old record store, and me personally are featured extensively in that U.S. black metal book. I put out the first Weakling record, or the only Weakling record. I put out the first Leviathan record. Like, I'm very proud. Yeah, that book. I'm very proud of the part I played in like U.S. black metal and West Coast black metal and Kerbane and Dragar, and like I'm really, really, and I'm obsessed. I did a radio show that was nothing but super obscure underground, noisy, raw black metal. Like I like, trust me, my heart is made out of metal. But
Yeah.
this band, I think, is a weird, like, fun experiment that to me seems more metal adjacent than I think
Yeah.
actual metal.
Uh, the question of why is this metalcore, why is this death metal is like much like you guys. I've friends in my life with whom I do nothing but argue about music with. I think it's just the symptom of a true music nerd.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And
But
like, why is this death metal and not slam metal?
right,
Why is
exactly.
this? What
Yeah.
makes this brutal death metal and not just regular death metal? Like, it's fun. It's just fun. Like, I don't know if it's just growing up working in a record store or playing in bands my whole life, but like arguing about music is fun. And for me, that's actually, and maybe this is unhealthy, but it's how I learned to create interesting music. Like, I think Mark can have a part that's cool. I could have a part that's cool, but if we fight about it and argue about it and it changes so that we're both happy, it like mutates into something new and different and better. And I think like when I come in with an idea, no matter how good it is, if we argue about it for an hour and finally get to a place where we're both happy, it's better. And I think that's how I learned to make music with other people. Um, the key is to like keep the arguments fun and not like get really, and I think Mark and I are good at that, where we're like, oh, this is getting a little,
Yeah.
let's
If it's
take a
okay
step
for
back.
Andy, if it's okay for me to share this, Andy,
Sure.
I think I repeated this back to you and you don't remember saying, you didn't remember at the time saying this, but it really stuck with me is, um, Andy and I were working on this part and we were counting it differently. Like I was like, okay. And then it happens 8 times and you were like, no, it happens 4 times. And I was like, okay, but to me it's 8. To explain it, can you consider it 8 so that I can explain it from where I'm coming from? And you're like, yeah, but it's 4 for me. And I was like, but can you just make it 8 just to understand what I'm trying to say? And you replied, I make music to have fun, and this is not fun. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, oh my God, okay, yep, you're absolutely right. This does not fucking matter. This is like, yeah,
Yeah,
fuck
I
this.
don't remember saying that, but it's true. And I also think that's a symptom of approaching music, uh, music that could be considered somewhat academic, but approaching it non-academically, where you're like we make this cool part, and someone's like, "Oh, that's in 7." I was like, "Not to me. It's just a part that I made." Like so. I think anyway. I do. I think that's fun, and I think finding a person. It's almost like a relationship, like or no, it is a relationship, but almost like a romantic relationship where if you can find a person that you can argue about all the stuff you love with them, then they're a keeper.
Totally. Well, this is something that comes up for me at work a lot, which is that okay. Sorry to get esoteric for a second, but the Gottmans are these couples therapists who have this thing where like a couple will usually have one fight all the time for the rest of the relationship. The question is, how do they negotiate that fight? If they can't handle it, they'll break up. If they can find ways to have a sense of humor about it, to be accommodating, to get really angry and then bring it back down, that's a real relationship. And so I feel like that's overlaps with what you were just saying, Andy, is like, yeah, we can fight about the same stupid shit over and over and over, but we've figured out how to make it fun and
Yeah,
challenging and
yeah,
like it makes me a better person to be able to get in to those moments with you, you know?
Sorry to throw in yet another digression, but um, as you're talking about like why this is metal and metal dudes like coming in and listening to this, I started thinking about Dungeon Synth and how there's this whole like strange sub genre of black metal, which is just like ambient synth drone stuff. Um, Obviously, like as somebody who because you mentioned Burzum, as somebody who
Yeah,
didn't know about any of that stuff and didn't know about Tangerine Dream, didn't know about like minimalist composers. As a teenager, all I knew was like these black metal bands doing like this weird like synth creepy
yeah.
stuff. And I'm wondering if there's some of that in your DNA. Obviously, Andy, you're very knowledgeable about this stuff, but if that occurred to you, like this is also starting to creep into that realm as well.
Well, it's funny. I don't know what it was for. I think maybe it was for my radio show. I was like, and this was years ago, where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do a whole radio show where I just do the intros from black metal records. I was like, that'll be awesome. And then later I was like, oh, that was basically all Dungeon Synth before there was Dungeon Synth. Like it was
Right.
just every moody intro to every black metal song. Um, but it's funny too because Mark does a really awesome podcast that I've been on twice, and one of the times I was on was to speak about Dungeon Synth, which I am a big fan of.
To
So,
explain
to
Dungeon
explain,
Synth.
and partner on the podcast is, I don't want to say less musical, but I felt like I was there to help Chad understand Dungeon Synth more than you. So,
Yeah.
but I would think, yeah. I mean, obviously, Dungeon Synth is much more minimal and ambient. So I think we would have to make up like I think on some level what we do is like
Howard Dungeon
Dungeon
Synth.
Synth. Yeah, yeah, I was about to say that. Like Dungeon Synth writ large. Like it's it's synth and drums, and it's definitely the vibe we're going for is very like, I don't know if it's specifically dungeony, but that's like the dark, grim, moody, minimal, cinematic, abstract. Like I think but I don't think it's explicit because I don't think until until the last few years, like Mark was super connected to Dungeon Synth, so I don't know that that informed what you were doing.
Wait,
Mark,
what?
Mark, did you see a connection between what you're doing and maybe some of the Dungeon Synth stuff that you heard?
It's just easy for
Uh,
him to tune me out. That's what happened.
no, I've I I don't really connect with that. There's a lot of dungeon things about Dungeon Synth I don't totally connect with. I'm not a gamer, and it's hard for me not
You don't have a
to
pair of
come.
D20 fuzzy dice hanging
I
from your.
really don't.
Okay.
I really don't. Um, my interest in synthesis is more coming from a sort of like conceptual field recording 20th century composer and less the sort of like cheesiest presets on a DX7, I
Right.
guess.
Right.
And no disrespect to that stuff, but I think the way I can best appreciate Dungeon Synth is to think of it as straight boy camp, you know? And again, that sounds like I'm taking the piss, but I'm not. Like I kind of appreciate that about it. But I feel like there's some
I
aspects
feel
to
like
it.
you just described the entire genre of black metal.
Yeah,
Straight boy
basically.
camp.
Oh,
The
for
leather
sure, right?
vests, the makeup, the cheesy
Yeah.
Yeah,
intros. Yeah, that's it.
the
You
mythology, everything. I will
you
say
cracked the
from
code.
I find so I get a lot of grief because I'm a drummer, and my favorite black metal is so I will see a band that I think that I don't like and are terrible, but they have a great drummer, and people are always like, "Well, their drummer's so good, why don't you like them?" And I can't necessarily separate the drums from the whole piece, and I have this weird thing where like I obviously love technical drummers and I love like all the same drummers everybody loves, but like I find it really appealing, and it's part of what I love about black metal, especially like the raw black metal that I gravitate to, is that it's this, for some reason drums is the last thing that people master, and in the world of sort of bedroom black metal, the drumming is like an afterthought, and they're like, well, I guess I'll just play the drums myself. And so the drums are often like stumbling and weird, and I just find it really, really, I don't know if it's like emotionally, but I find it really appealing. Like at some point, drumming is so technical that it's just, it doesn't get more technical. But for me, there's this vast sort of swath of drumming that is so creative and so by necessity. Like I'm not a drummer, but I want to make a black metal record, so I'm just going to play the drums. It doesn't matter that I don't know how to play drums, and it ends up being really inspired and weird, and it changes the whole tenor of the music. And there's a point of this is like I feel like a lot of that surfaces for me in Dungeon Synth, where it's like a lot of, they're not like, they didn't go to Juilliard to study piano. They just like bought a synthesizer at the thrift store, and they're like figuring out really simple chords, and they're repeated over and over again. And it's a lot about the quality of the sound or the ambient vibe. And I find that really, really appealing from a like, and black metal is like this for me too, where to me, it feels very, um, outsider art, like it's always been this strain of outsider art where it's not like Steve Vai shredding on guitar, and it's like folks like figuring it out and making it up as they go. And to me, the best black metal is the stuff that's just like so fucked up and so weird and so like so much more about the emotion and the feel than the technical virtuosity. And I feel like for me, Dungeon Synth is the perfect sort of analog, or it's like the ambient version of that for me, where it's just, it gives me the same rush, where it's just like so coming from just like I can't describe it better than it just feels like pure outsider art to me, and I love it.
So, is the reason why my heart isn't Dungeon Sim because Mark's just too good a sim player?
No, definitely not. No.
Definitely not. Sorry, I want to jump on that one. Like, um, no, I just don't think it was like, I think
Sure,
I
sure.
have been working,
Yeah,
yeah, I know you're
I understand
joking.
what you're saying. It's just the connection dawned on me when you mentioned Burzum, and I remembered all. There's this
Yeah.
whole thing of like metal synth, and like, when we're discussing your audience and who this would appeal to, uh, you know, there is an audience for that, even if it's in a completely different context.
I mean, I would go out and no offense to Mark, but uh, I don't even think the synth is the point. Like, I think it's a fun thing to talk about, and it's a really interesting way to create sound. But it wasn't like we were trying to. It just so happened that Mark is a synth player, and we came together and made this thing that felt cool and original to us. Like, I don't think we had the target on like we're going to define what heavy synth music is. Like, it was just the tools we had at our disposal. And I think in a way that inspired us to do what we do. And it also, its limitations also help define what we do. And its lack of limitations allow us to go way beyond like guitars and basses. And I just think it just so, like it's a part of it that to talk about like, oh, it's just synth and it's not guitar, and that's unique. But again, I don't think it was like we didn't set out to be this thing. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I think there's also this component where, like, if you listen to most Dungeon Synth that I've ever heard, it sounds like synthesizers, right? It is resolutely
That's an interesting
synthesizers
point.
trying
Yeah,
to sound like an horn section or trying to sound like, vintage Moogs or something to get the
yeah.
Tangerine Dream element or something like that, right? Whereas, as we were discussing, most of My Heart in Inverted Flame, the synths sound kind of like overdriven guitars.
Yeah.
It's rarely synthy. Also, sometimes Dungeon Synth has percussion, but it's rarely propulsive.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
Andy's drumming is incredibly propulsive. I would also say that a lot of Dungeon Synth, the subject matter is somewhat, we could say, like narrative or something like that, or referring to aspects of gaming or history or something like that. And
Folklore, yeah.
My Heart and Inverted Flame, generally speaking, the song titles, the lyrics, the even just the way I think, I can't speak for Andy, but it tends towards being far more existential,
Mhm.
philosophical, rooted in sort of dark ideas. Um, I think that's. I almost feel like that part of it connects it more to metal than Dungeon Synth.
Right.
And
Though again, this is all blurry. So
to me, the thing with being a synth and drums duo is there are a ton, not a ton, but there are a lot of bands that I like that do that. But to my recollection, very few of them are as I don't want to diss anyone. It's not a diss really, but like I think we end up being weirder and heavier. You know, like I love Pinkish Black. They're a duo, but
Yeah.
to me, they're almost a pop band. Like I feel like synth drum duos tend toward, well, even if they're heavy, they're still kind of this like Miracle or Zombie. Like there's still this kind of new wave vibe almost. Whereas like I think we've really leaned into the like all the bands that Mark mentioned. You know, like Naja bands who are like, you know, who are more. I don't want to. I don't want to. Who are more about, often more about sound than song, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like texture more than melody. You know, like I think that is something that was, I felt like was unique in our approach.
Yeah. So a month ago, your second album, My Death is More Beautiful Than Your Life, was released through Crucial Blast. Can you guys tell me
Yes.
about your intentions for this album? What are you
Um,
doing? Did you want to build on what you've done in the past? Did you want to try something new?
well, what's interesting is, you know, we talked about this is record number two, and it's been more than 8 years. We finished this record like 3 years ago, so it's so exciting to like have it be out, and it's actually exciting to think about learning the songs and playing them or playing some version of them. But I do think it was I don't know if it was a conscious decision, but for me, um, the first record I think was interesting to a lot of people because as a drummer, like people know me because I'm like I've always been in math bands and played like so much and like crazy and like this is an 11 and this is in 7 even if I don't know how to count it, you know, like uh so I think people were really like the first song is like one hit every 10 seconds and people are like, whoa, you
what
know, like
happened to
what,
Andy?
yeah, what happened to Andy? And so like I don't think it was conscious, but I think as we played together, some of my more of my like rhythmic proclivities kind of made it into the sound. um I don't think it's any less heavy or doomy, but I do think it's more varied. And I think there's some, and Mark did some really cool, weird, abstract stuff. So I think it's more dynamic. Um, yeah, that's my. I don't know what I don't think there was like a specific intention. I just think it was like a natural progression for me. I don't know about you, Mark.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with all of that. It definitely has more sort of propulsion, and it's a little more jagged. I think this only makes sense in my head, so I don't know if saying it out loud makes any sense, but it feels like more in the direction of post punk from our first record. It is not a post punk record. I just mean sort of like there's an angularity to it.
I can
Um,
kind of see that. Yeah.
yeah,
Because we have actually we have one we have one other record that's kind of actually way more angular and way more punky and post punk that's not out, and then we made another one that's sort of back to our original intention, the sort of like more metal necks. And for me, I don't know if you know that Tony Conrad and Faust record where it's just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
1 hour of a single beat and that violin
yeah,
drone.
yeah.
We sort of made a bunch of songs with that, or at least for me, that was what inspired that. So we've definitely been progressing and experimenting. I think just the release schedule is a little behind
Yeah.
what we've been doing.
Well, I think also we haven't been like, let's explore an idea and then doing 15 songs and then choosing a certain number of those songs and then trying to release them and then moving on from that idea. It's been more we get together and, hey, let's go back to that thing. Hey, let's pick up on that other idea we were doing last year. Hey, and so we're just sort of like building on these ideas as self-contained units as we go. And then when one of those ideas has enough material for an album, we're collecting it and calling it an album, as
And
opposed to like
actually,
it's not eras. It's more like ideas that get collected.
Right. You
yeah, I was going
mentioned
to say,
that.
actually, the song, there is a song on My Death that was sort of plucked from that Tony Conrad and Faust sessions. And it's obvious which one it is. It's the long one that doesn't change. It's like, but for some reason, when we were like putting the record together, we're like, it felt good to have that sort of dynamic dip where it was like, it's buffeted on both sides by like more extreme stuff, but it was like, I don't know, it just seemed to fit, even though it was earmarked for a different record.
You guys mentioned that your songs come out of improv jam sessions. With that, um, how long does it take for songs to come together working that way? Like, are you constantly recording? Are you listening back to jam sessions and piecing stuff together, editing stuff together, or do you just hit record and release it as release whatever comes out?
I think kind of all of the above. It sort of depends. Oftentimes, we'll go into the studio and 5 minutes later we're recording something, and we love it, and it's definitely there's some layering that happens in post because it's just me with two hands making all the non
Yeah.
rhythmic elements. Um, but and then sometimes it's we'll again go into the studio and just like play and then argue and then play and then argue and then play and then argue and then on the who knows what number take it was on the same idea, and then I take it and then I bring it into my studio and then add layers and send it to Andy, and Andy maybe might say like, nah, this isn't working for me, and then I try other stuff, and so the process just sort of is really elongated and drawn out. So it really depends on like it's also so funny. I don't know if other musicians feel this way, but I've always had this thing where like when I feel like I am in the zone and I am inspired and I have focus and I record, and it doesn't necessarily mean it was better, because then sometimes I'm like tired and pissy and unpleasant to be around and not really trying very hard, and then the results are like way better. It's just like wildly inconsistent from like input to output. um so yeah, it
And we
just
do
it just
have, I was going to say, right now I have 2 or 3 folders on my computer that are like, we have 2 semi-finished records. We have one huge sort of folder that Mark made of like the last 25 songs or 30 songs that we worked on for to be like further worked on and potentially a record. And then we've been sort of fantasizing about doing this collaboration with like we've never had guitar players, so we were going to get it out of our system and do this one record where every song was a
Keytar.
collab. Oh, don't bring
no,
up
no, no,
Let's
guitar.
throw in
no.
Keytar.
So that's a sore subject. No, we wanted to have like a guitar player we love, like collaborate with us on every song, and just sort of get all kind of the guitar out of our system. But the point being, like, some of the stuff just like happens like that, but some of the stuff has been sitting for years at this point. And like the black metal record that I was telling you about that I think is amazing, sort of stalled and it's just sitting on the computer, but it's great. We just, we live in different cities. We both have jobs. We have other bands. Like, so it's sort of a lot of like some stuff just falls together and feels real natural, and some stuff we just really have to force ourselves to go back and like sort of work on consistently.
How about a double disc? One album of just music and the other of just the arguments. It
Oh
could
my
be
god, we
it could be like that
we,
Neurosis album where they have the ambient part and the metal part. You play them
yeah,
together.
I know you're kidding, but we've talked about that. When we were rehearsing for our last chunk of shows of the many of the 4 shows we played. We literally considered just setting everything up and then just like arguing on stage for 25 minutes and walking out. Like we legitimately were talking about it because sometimes I think like we get really into it, and I was like, man, we should save this for this because then when you get on stage, you're like, hi, we're a band, and like what, we were so funny and we were insulting each other and we were just being like hilarious. So yeah, we've yeah, don't think we haven't thought of that because man. But yeah, I didn't think of the thing where like the ambient disc and the metal disc go together. It's just like we make an ambient disc and an argument disc. That would be
that's
awesome.
pretty good. Yeah, if we steal that, you're only getting credit, no money. Is that okay?
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take a producer credit.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Executive producer.
I mean, it's like the question, what does Rick Rubin do? Apparently, he just lies on a couch and then says things like, make it punchier.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, to live that life.
Did you guys record this yourselves? Do you have your own studio?
Yeah.
Well, we did. We just after
pulled it apart a few weeks ago.
yeah, the studio is now sitting in my garage in the woods. So, but yeah, we had a rehearsal studio that we basically, it was something we'd always wanted where we had everything set up, everything permanently mic'd. Like in the old days, like practice sucked. Like you go in and you share with another band and you spend an hour resetting up the drums and everything. But we'd finally gotten this thing where like my drums were totally mic'd, the synths were mic'd, and all we had to do was like turn on the light, turn on the mixer, and play. And so it was really conducive to. And I think that's part of why we were so productive and we came up with so much stuff. Um, we have a lot of friends who are like engineers. We have one specific friend who's we've been trying to record with forever. He recorded the new Neurosis. Um, we've never recorded with somebody else, so we had sort of entertained the idea of doing what we do, but with Scott, like where we go into a real studio because I was like, oh, it'd be so awesome to have a big drum room and everything, and just like record a bunch of parts like we always do, and then just let Scott do whatever he wants with it. We had talked about that just to see if we could work with someone else and also just to see like what it would sound like if we had massive organic drum sounds and we had like a big cathedral room with synths in it. And but so far we've recorded everything by ourselves.
Did you bring
Yeah.
in an engineer to help you with this, or did you guys do all the engineering yourself? All the
No,
mixing as
Mark
just
well?
us.
Mark
Yep.
Mark does all the mixing.
Oh, wow.
The only James Plotkin masters everything, but Mark does all the mixing. I'm a drummer, so I'm still learning how to use my mixing software. But the idea now that I live up here and Mark lives down there, the idea is like I have everything I need now. I bought a new mixer. I have MIDI drums, everything. The idea is to sort of make this more organically, uh, give me a bit more agency in the mixing, and give Mark more to work with from my side, where I could just be like, "Hey, I recorded 30 minutes of weird drums. I'm sending them to you," and he could do whatever he wants with them. Like, I think that's. I'm in the process of trying to build a studio up here for us, ostensibly to rehearse before we tour, but mainly to sort of augment our recording since we got rid of our San Francisco space.
So you mentioned Plotkin. Why Plotkin?
Uh, he's really nice, and he's really nice. He's actually really affordable. Everything he masters sounds incredible.
I trust his ears.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's been really encouraging too. Like I feel like most mastering engineers are like, "Here, I did it for you," but he was really like, "Oh, I love your new song. Oh, that new EP is great." He was like really, and I don't know if maybe he does that with everybody, but it felt really nice to be like in conversation with him. And I sort of knew him from my old record store, and just the fact that he played in Con 8, he played in Old Lady Drivers. He's like
Absolutely, yeah.
his bona fides are kind of like next level, and now he does so many records. But in the old days, like I would see a record and it said, mastered by Plotkin, and I'd be like, holy shit,
Yeah.
this is going to sound so good. And so I think the first time we reached out, not really knowing, like, could we afford to have something mastered by him? Is like, and then he was really nice, really affordable, and really easy to work with, and made our shit sound awesome. So, yeah, I think that's plus it's just neat to work with somebody who's made so much music that we kind of are obsessed with, and you know, influenced what we do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Sorry,
five
Mark,
stars.
do you want to say
Five
something
stars.
Oh
about working with Pluckin since you handle the
no,
mix?
oh no, no, it helps. Especially like doing all that mixing, and then I I do the best I can, and then whenever I get the masters back from James Plotkin, I really do feel like, oh, thank you for somehow making sense of what I sent. You know,
And I hate to be that guy because I've already been that guy about singing, but I was also very anti-mastering before this band. Like I was like, oh, mastering's bullshit. Like, and then when we got our record back, the first record back from James, I was like, holy shit, this sounds so good. And I was like, uh, what do you call it? Eating crow.
Yeah. I mean, mastering
Yeah.
is a funny thing because I speak with a few engineers and I always ask them like, what is mastering? And I sort of understand it now, but it is like a funny riddle for me when, I ask a band like what they wanted the mastering engineer to do, and they say we wanted to sound like the mix. And it's like, but the mix already sounds like the mix. Like, why do you need a
Yeah.
second guy to make it sound
yeah,
like itself?
My
Um,
favorite, my favorite and weirdest mastering experience, and this was when I didn't think mastering mattered, was I don't know if you're familiar with Weakling, who are
yeah,
this
yeah.
Bay Area black metal band that made one record and no one gave a shit, and now everybody gives a shit. But we had it mastered. I forgot his name now, but we had it mastered by the guy who's like it was in Oakland or Berkeley, and he was like,
fantasy.
what was his name? It was a
Was it
fantasy.
George Horn?
George Horn,
Yeah.
who's this like old guy who did like every record you've ever heard, like Creedence Clearwater Revival and like Tom Petty and all this stuff. And we were sitting in their room listening to like the harshest black metal, and he was like so good natured about it, but so like out of his element. But it was so fun just seeing him sort of try to figure out what he was supposed to do with it. It was really fun.
It's funny. I mastered an album with him for my Never Knows project, and at that point, he was legally deaf. It was super fascinating. Like I had to be like, could you fade this song out earlier for me? And he's ostensibly trying to, like, he's mastering my record, but can't hear me yelling at him. But it was really interesting because two things. One, he turned to me in the middle of the mastering session and said, "This is recorded really well." And I thought, how do you know? But the thing is, it came back beautifully. His mastering job was incredible. I just don't understand how he did it because
Yeah.
he wasn't using computers. He was using like all vintage gear,
Yeah.
and his deaf ears. I don't know. Something about experience, I guess.
I mean, Plotkin is he's so respected as for his mastering. But I need to, sorry, I'm not trying to drag you into the metal world, but I need to make the connection between what he did on the last old record, Formula,
Oh yeah.
and what you guys are doing. I don't know if that was on your minds at all.
It did occur to me that there was like, and I think that was actually, I don't know if it was like top of mind, but I think we both recognized that he was like he had like a foot in both worlds. Like he wasn't going to approach our record just like a metal record because he had made all this cool fucked up experimental music, and he wasn't going to approach it just like a weird experimental record. Like he knew he wanted it to be heavy and metallic. So I think there was, whether it was whether it was conscious or not, I think at least for me, that sort of fed into why he was such a good choice. And obviously that old record is a good example of like a record that's weird and bizarre, but also heavy and cool, you know, which is kind of like if someone described our music like that, I'd be like, that's all I want, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, any chance I get to mention old, I try to take it. I'm obsessed with that last album. It's so
Oh,
like
so
weird
good.
and cool, and apparently one of the lowest selling albums Eric ever put out.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It's also one that almost without exception, I don't know about where you are, but like we have a lot of, that's a record that I always find in the bargain bin at the record store.
Yeah. Well,
Always.
that's where I got
And I
mine.
just, oh, okay, yeah. See, and I always buy it because I'm like, I have it, but I'm going to give it to someone who needs it. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's such a,
Absolutely.
yeah.
In terms of his role as the mastering engineer, what did you want James Plotkin to bring to the finished sound of the album? What did you want this album to be?
Did we even give him notes? I mean, I feel like the we wouldn't necessarily need to explain like heavier, louder, but also clarity. Like
I think for this record, I could find it for you there. It's in my email somewhere, but I basically was like, something like you already know what we need or something because he like at that point he'd done our first record and he'd done we did a year of EPs, so we did 13 EPs one year and we've done like 5 since then. So I was like, you know, like he's very familiar with what we do and what we're trying to do. So I think that's also another element is we don't even really need to tell him at this point. We're like, you know what we do, you know when we're at our best and what it should sound like, and you're part of that, and just do what you always do. I think there's only one time, and that was like years ago, where Mark had notes on a mix, but otherwise, almost without exception, it's been exactly what we wanted it to be, and that's just wanted it to sound like us but better.
Mark, did you want anything to that?
no, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the album has been out for a month. What do you guys have
Well,
planned? Is there release parties?
there's been some issues
Okay.
with the plant and stuff. So technically, it came out May 15th, but the CDs just the physical copies just arrived today.
Okay.
So I think like sometime in the next week. So for me personally, I'm considering it like it's coming out now. Like it in the next week or two, it'll be. I think Revolver has it, so it'll show up in stores. I think you know some of the momentum has been delayed because of the problems getting the tapes done and the CDs done, and but yeah, we had a listen. We had a Bandcamp listening party that was really fun, and I know I saw it on the Crucial Blast site. We have it up on our site, so it's. I think we're in a moment of like delayed gratification where we're finally like we haven't even seen them yet, so we haven't seen the CDs, we haven't seen the tapes, we haven't seen anything, so we're still curious about how it turned how it turned out.
Okay.
Does that
Um,
mess up your question? Sorry.
no. I was curious if you guys have any plans for promoting it. Like, do you have any shows lined up? Are you going to do any festivals or anything like that?
Right now we have plans. I mean, we really have like I don't know. I don't know. Well, it's a bigger thought, but we have not played very many shows. I think we've played four four
Or
four shows, 4 shows in 8 years, which is amazing. But part of it's been that we don't live in the same state. Part of it's been that we just like recording and making music maybe more than playing live. Although when we played live, it was super fun. So we do have plans to play more. We're doing the plan right now is later in the year we're going to do a residency in San Francisco and do either like 2 or 3 nights at this place and do like a different set each night and have different opening bands. Um, I'm having surgery in 2 days to have the first of two surgeries to replace both my knees, which is very exciting. Um, but it kind of puts me out of commission for a little while. So it's a little bit contingent on my recovery. But yeah, we're planning on. We're still, if anyone's listening to this, we're still fishing for like a booking agent. We really want to do more tours, and we really want to do some festivals, and we really want to go to Europe, and we really want to play in more places. I think we need some, like now that the record's out, I feel like there's going to be some natural momentum, and we're going to try, we're going to try to up that 4 shows to maybe 5 or 6.
You know how black metal bands have ambient intro tracks on tape and then they play live? Maybe you guys
Yeah.
can have your arguments on tape and then that'll be
Oh,
the interstitial between songs.
yeah,
Oh,
that's really
that's a good
good.
idea.
Or
Or
we'll
like
just
the
play
minute,
this. We'll play this podcast.
or the minute the band before us finishes, then over the PA, it just starts us arguing until we're ready to play. That'd be amazing.
So, My Death is More Beautiful Than Your Life is out now through Crucial Blast. Andy and Mark, please tell everyone listening to this how they can get the album. What's the best way?
Were you just pointing at me?
I was pointing at you.
Oh,
I was
I'm
pointing north
on my
to
screen.
you.
I'm the other direction, by the way. Yeah. Um, well, as I mentioned, the CDs and the tapes, and there's another tape too, actually, uh, that Crucial Blast put out that combines two of our previous EPs onto one tape. So that's out. Then My Death is out. You can order them from the Crucial Blast website. He also has a Crucial Blast Bandcamp. We have a Bandcamp, which is just, if you just Google My Heart and Inverted Flame, you'll get our Bandcamp. Um, you can get that there, as well as the like millions of EPs we did, and we still have copies of our first record, which is awesome. And we don't have shirts yet, but I have a shirt design done. So my suggestion, and it's so awesome. Everyone who's seen it has been like, even people who don't even care about music or this band are like, oh my God, I want one of those shirts when they're done. So my suggestion would be to just follow us on Bandcamp, because I think we might just do it, like have people ask for shirts and only make as many as people ask for. Um, but trust me, it's awesome.
And then also Revolver is distributing
Oh yeah.
the new album.
So you can order it from midheaven.com, which is Revolver, or theoretically, you can ask your record store to order it from Midheaven/Revolver, and they distribute all over the world too. So even if you're in Europe or somewhere, you can get it via Revolver.
And if people want to get updates on and your residency or any possible shows coming up, what's the best way to do that?
Probably Bandcamp. Follow us on Bandcamp. Neither of us are. I mean, I'm not on social media at all. Andy, you're
I
somewhat on
try.
social media, yeah. But we do post what's up via Bandcamp messaging. The
Yeah,
news,
and
like the
we also have a new split, and I'm showing it to you, even though this is not a
there you go.
It's okay.
even though.
The video will be going up on YouTube if you want to hold it up and
Oh,
we can
okay.
talk about
So
it.
yeah, we have a new split coming with a friend of ours who does a music project called Earth Jerks, uh, and it's cool. It's very different. Those technically are just coming out on my label Tumult, which was inactive for a long time, and we've sort of just reactivated to our stuff. Speaking of which, if this is plugs, I also put out Mark's solo record, which is a double cassette of like super intense blackened dub techno, which is creepy and ambient and rhythmic and murky and great. And I still have those if somebody wants to buy them. There is a Tumult Bandcamp too, TUMULT, and you can get that. It's great.
Guys, we're gonna get cut off very quickly, but
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time. This was a really fun conversation. And Andy,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Thanks so
somebody
much,
sent me
Adrian.
the documentary about Aquarius Records. So
Oh
hopefully I
rad.
can have you back on sometime to talk about that.
Oh, I'd love to anytime. It's been really those are Awesome questions and really fun chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Adrian.